When I was 15 and a half, I felt like I knew nothing. And for the first time, I realized it was okay. It was 2019, I was a student, barely out of school, eyes wide open, heart full of ambition, but no idea where to begin. Then COVID happened, and like for the most of you, the world stopped. But internally, something started moving. I was never a writer, definitely not a technical writer. Okay. I was never a writer, definitely not a technical writer. But I read a book, a self help book, and my parents suggested that I write a series of review articles about that book. And I wondered, what's the advantage of writing one article or a series of articles? But I thought there would be somebody out there that might actually need a good review of that article. So I went ahead and took it from a regular document to a just published account. And later, I stumbled into technical writing. Not because it was trendy, but because I built a simple Gmail automation solution that sent out bulk emails from a spreadsheet to customers, users, and stuff. And that solution could be enhanced for, say, customers, HR, small business owners, etc. So that one thought of just helping somebody out got me started. And that began my journey in the Google Workspace and the tech writing domain. That was the start. By 2023, I became one of the youngest Google developer experts for Google Workspace. This still feels surreal to say. But what people see are the titles, the flashy GIFs, the awards, the tags and stuff. And what they don't see is the messy middle, the confusion, the nights when nothing made sense, the rejections and the awkward beginnings. So today, I want to tell you a story about not getting it right, but about figuring it out. So just a small introduction before we move forward. I'm a Google developer expert for Google Workspace. I'm a technical writer, public speaker, almost a software engineer. I have about 2 months to go and I'll graduate in June. And I'm the co-founder of Mad Lab Studios, a production house I started with my two best friends who are in the audience today. So let me begin with the first lesson that changed everything for me. It's okay to say, I don't know. Seriously, in our culture, not knowing can feel like a weakness. We pretend, we nod, we fake confidence. But I learned that admitting I don't know opens up new doors. When I didn't know how to start a podcast, I said it aloud to my friends, and now I run a podcast with them. When I didn't know how to run a team of people, I asked for help, and people joined me. Not because I was a perfect leader, but because I was honest and willing to work. And it turns out people actually want to help, but only if you're willing to be helped. I started noticing something strange and kind of amazing. The more I showed up online, the more doors opened and more opportunities came in. I was not being consistent. I was being consistent and not focusing on the followers or trying to go viral. I was just being there, sharing what I know, what I built, and what I learned. That presence became powerful. It led to conversations, opportunities, and a sense of community I never expected. And one of the coolest things to come out of this was Mad Lab Studios, a production house that I co-founded with my friends. Now, we weren't media professionals, nor were we trained editors, nor were we trained voice artists. But we were just a bunch of curious students with big ideas, cracked humor, and a ton of late night energy. We learned on the fly, scripting, writing, shooting, editing, and we weren't doing it for the grades or the glory. We were doing it because we loved it. And honestly, that experience taught me more about leadership, creativity, building from scratch, that any textbook or any formal education ever could. Now, what didn't work was trying to do everything by myself. There was a time when I felt I had to prove something to my parents, maybe to myself and maybe to my peers. So I took on too much on myself, I burned out, lost focus, and that's when I learned my second lesson. Knowing when to say no. It's a very powerful skill. Every yes that you say is a trade-off which might eat into time where you can be spending time on things that really matter. Saying yes to every opportunity diluted my energy and I had to learn how to filter. And that only came with understanding what I liked, what drained me, and what aligned with my values. So I stopped chasing what looked good on LinkedIn and I started chasing what felt right inside. Now, the third lesson that I want to talk about is there is no right formula. Just keep at it. There's no cheat code that I'm going to give you. There's no step-by-step roadmap I have for you. But what worked for me might not work for you. But here's the universal truth. Consistency compounds. I kept showing up on YouTube, blogs, and forums even when no one was watching, especially when no one was watching. And over time, that online presence led to contracts, collaborations, and eventually recognition. I didn't chase the spotlight. The spotlight found me doing the work. But let's pause here. let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like everyone around you is figuring out things faster than you and somehow you're left behind? That's called FOMO, the fear of missing out. We all feel it, even I have. But I made a decision that I wouldn't let FOMO dictate my direction. Instead, I embraced JOMO, the joy of missing out. Because while everyone was running in every direction, I was quietly building, exploring, failing, learning, and eventually thriving. And that brings me to a bigger realization. Someone maybe should have told this to me a little bit more sooner. Formal education teaches you how to endure. Real growth comes out of the classroom. My grades weren't spectacular and they still aren't. And honestly, they didn't need to be. Because the skills that have brought me here today weren't taught inside of a classroom. But don't get me wrong, a formal education is still very important. And these skills that have brought me here today, content creation, public speaking, technical writing, weren't taught in any syllabus. I learned them by doing, by messing up, but don't get me wrong, formal education still has value. It teaches you how to push through tough situations, how to collaborate, and how to problem solve under pressure. Think of it as a training for the real world, not a definition of your self-worth. So I want to tell you a story before that. The very first time that I stood in front of a crowd to speak, it wasn't a stage, it wasn't a big venue, it was a small classroom. I was asked to teach Python programming to a bunch of 12th graders in my college. I had never taught before and I wasn't even sure if I was the right person to do that. But Archana ma'am, one of my machine learning professors back in college, believed I could. She believed that I could speak, even though I wasn't the best speaker, I wasn't the most experienced, but because she thought I could and she had that potential. And that small gesture became my first step in my public speaking journey. And it wasn't about confidence, it was about belief. Somebody else's belief in me before I had any in myself. One moment of trust, one stage, and one story. Since then, I've spoken at multiple conferences, mentored others, and built communities. But it all started with someone saying, I believe in you. So if you're in a position to offer that belief to someone, please do it. You never know what it could spark. The internet is your stage, where your blog, your YouTube video, or your comment can be your next audition tape. But here's the catch. Be consistent. You don't need to go viral. You just need to show up. And when you do, amazing things happen. People find you, opportunities seek you. And I want to give you an example of how an actual opportunity came out and seeked. So this is the owner of a Google Workspace add-on company that has over 50 million downloads. And this was back in 2021. I had just started my technical writing journey. I'd spent a couple of years writing. And the company came and seeked me out and said, can you write for us? So this is one example of being consistent, being out there, showing your worth, and people will come to you for work. Now, I've been thinking this idea about purpose, and at one point I thought my goals were same as the purpose. You hit a milestone, you feel fulfilled, but then I heard a lyric from a rapper, Logic. And the lyric goes something like this. I used to think goals were a form of purpose. I used to think achieving them is what led you to happiness. And now I'm starting to realize the happiest I've been, even though it's hard, was actually the journey in achieving those goals. So yeah, maybe purpose isn't found in the finish line, it's maybe built in the process, and it's messy, it's chaotic, but honestly, it's beautiful. So what's the idea I hope you walk away with today? It's that I don't have the ideas, but you don't need to have them either. So here's what I want to leave you with. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start, say I don't know, say no when it matters, show up, stay patient, and most of all, remember this. The journey is not what distracts from the goal. The journey is the goal. Thank you.